So the first statement that I'd want to debate with you is I shouldn't have to keep telling government the same information over and over again. So that's essentially the first point. Do you agree? Do you feel that we should be in a position where government is in a much better place to recognise you and know without you constantly repeating the same thing? There's one state in Europe that have reached that point. Every state in Western democracy areas are making their way a longer journey to greater efficiency. And one state has got to the point where in law they can only hold the information about you once. And you are so in control of it that you can go in at one level and look at it. You can go in at another level and use it to your benefit to get a service or whatever it is. And the third level, which I think is extraordinary, and I admire them that they've got this far, is that you can audit your own information. Is it correct? Who's looked at it and why? You are in control. At the moment you are not. The process is inefficient and you're not in control of it. You don't actually know where bits of data about you exist. And government sort of feels that it's in charge of it. Here's an interesting one. If we go to the doctors in the Isle of Man, the doctor has information about you. It's possibly data-based, it's possibly in hard copy. But it's as if the doctor owns the information. You've never seen it. Do you know whether the information about you, your health information, is correct? In Germany, for example, somebody goes in with an authorization card. They decide which doctor it is that they want to see. They go to that doctor and they say, "Doctor, whatever it is, and I'm now going to permit you to see my data." And the card authorizes the doctor to see it. The individual knows and sees their own information. And when they leave, they take the card out and leave, and the doctor can't see it. You're in control of it. So we traditionally feel somehow that government should be in charge of our data, that they are authorized to, as it were, control our data. The fundamental argument here is no, that's not correct. We shouldn't have to keep telling government the same information again and again. We should control it. Let's see how you feel about it. Would you be kind enough to tell me how you think about that statement? I mean, we're here to listen as well as talk. No, that's actually comparing yourself to much bigger audiences. That's pretty typical, isn't it, Carl? Yeah. Just by way of example about repetition. If you're learning to drive, I mean, it's so long ago I've forgotten, but I mean, for me, look at all the forms you have to fill in. You have to fill in Form 1 to apply for a provisional license, Form 2 to apply for a theory test, 3 your driving test, 4 for a full license, and you're paying government to keep doing the same thing when in fact really, if they captured the information once, then it should be there to serve you, and it's not even linked to your vehicle. Just want to talk about the My Card for a second. Have any of you heard about the My Card? Okay. Up to very recently, up to now, we still have a fairly traditional method of payment of benefits in the post office if you still get your benefits through the post office, and that's the simple voucher thing. At the last check, we established that we were going through to enable that process to happen for those people still getting their benefits that way, that we're conducting 3,500,000 transactions throughout the year across the system in order to enable that process to go on. That's without the costs of the printing and the distribution and the staff behind it. Very, very inefficient. Now, the My Card comes in on trial February, around about February, in certain areas to see how it goes. And what happens is that the individual will go to a post office place the card in the proximity of the reader, and for the time that that card sits on that proximity reader, the person behind the counter will know who you are and what she or he is entitled to pay you. That transaction then happens, and as soon as you take your card off, post office can't see anymore. You put the card in your pocket and walk out. So you can see the differences in using technology compared to traditional methods. And there are opportunities to develop that further throughout the island and on other services as it progresses and people get used to it and we get used to using it as well. Could I ask you to consider that statement? We've sort of aired it fairly well already, but I would like to be in control of my personal information rather than the government. So how do you feel about that? Let's see what you said. That's pretty typical as well, isn't it?
But one of the difficulties we have, and one of the reasons why we should modernise the welfare state, is that it's slowly evolved in fits and starts over the last 70 years. It was designed in 1942 as a result of the Beveridge Report. There's been no real opportunity taken to stand back and have a look at the overall picture. And to go back to a point I was going to make to Jacqueline there, is that the system at the moment is very difficult to administer. It's not effective, it's very complicated. If you have a look through the government accounts, you'll see a whole range of benefits. Quite literally, there's approaching 100 benefits and various paths into those benefits. And from our staff's point of view, to actually understand and to administer them is a struggle, putting it politely, and from the public's point of view, they've got no hope at all. So, in my opinion, it's past time to undertake a full review, but before we do that, let's have a look at how we got there. Basically, we followed the UK. It was fairly straightforward, it was fairly easy to do, and it didn't involve a great deal of work on our part in formulating the policy. But since 1948, when the system was actually introduced, our two countries, the UK and the Isle of Man, have grown apart, both in terms of the shape of the population, that's in terms of the age structure of the population, and also to our economy and our taxation system. And I think it's fair to say that some of the changes which were made by the UK have been done with more of an eye to the next election than what's fair across the generations. And at the moment, we have a system which, in my opinion, is not affordable. So let's have a look at the facts. We have got a very comprehensive benefit system which helps to protect individuals who need financial support and to reward individuals who've worked and contributed to the prosperity of the island. However, the system is based on the model of society of the 1940s and 1950s, and I would suggest that that's not relevant now. What we need to do is to make sure that any arrangements we put in place are sustainable and fair across the generations. Now, there's been some comment made about increasing the pension age. I'll take you back to 1948, when the state pension was introduced under the present regime. The average male spent 1 year in retirement, and the average female spent 11 years in retirement. Last year, the average male spent 14 years in retirement, and the average female 20 years. The net effect is that our National Insurance Fund is running out much quicker than we thought, and we expect now, unless we take remedial action, it'll run out in 2047. So, but we have sufficient resources in place to undertake a gradual change, and that's one of the benefits that we have, unlike the UK, where they just have a few months in reserve in their National Health Insurance Fund. So going on to welfare reform, there has been public concern about it, and we've taken that concern on board, and we've undertaken a full review of the benefit system. As Chris said, it was a very comprehensive report, and it has shown up a number of issues, but it also made recommendations on the way forward. And I'll be on my feet again next month, going around just discussing with people, explaining, and trying to, in effect, paint the picture so the public understand better what the proposals are. We'll also discuss the proposals with your elected representatives as well, and the whole community, just to make sure that everybody's involved with it. If you would like to have a look at the report, it is available on the government website. If you give me your details later, we will give you a link into that report. It's absolutely fascinating. Why do we need to change? And I think this is a fairly graphic illustration. Over the last 10 years, the number of people claiming income support of working age has gone up by 150%. In the UK, it's gone down by 20% in the same period, because the UK have changed their benefit structure to a certain extent over the same period. We haven't done so. The total benefit caseloads, which includes income support, has increased by 77% in the Isle of Man and fallen by 9% in the UK in the last decade. And if we take out inflation, the expenditure on benefits has increased by 46% in the last 12 years. Now, I'd just like to go through, if you don't mind, one of the principles of the Beveridge report, and it quote, "The third principle is that social security must be achieved by cooperation between the state and the individual. The state should offer security for service and contribution. The state, in organising security, should not stifle incentive, opportunity, or responsibility. In establishing a national minimum, it should leave room and encouragement for voluntary action by each individual to provide more than that minimum for himself and his family." So, if we can just go on then to the question, I'll just explain a bit more. In my youth, the benefit system was there to help people over a period of temporary difficulty. If, for example, they were unemployed or ill, if they had a long-term illness, then there would be long-term support. It's rather controversial to say, but I'll say it. I'd ask you, has what has started out as a safety net become a comfort blanket? Could we just ask you to consider that, and when the button goes green, as it has done now, to vote, please.